Hi there guys, welcome to another day with Oswald Chambers devotion. My utmost for his highest. May 1st, faith not emotion. And he references 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 7, and 2 Corinthians chapter 5 has got to be one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. It's just so rich with just incredible truths and theology and so on. So I highly recommend you really go and pore over that. But 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7 reads, "We walk by faith, not by sight." And I again just want to dispel any truths with regards to that specific verse, because a lot of atheists use it about Christianity, that we just walk by faith and it's some story that we've made up or that's made up, and we blindly believe in it, that faith is this blind belief in God. That is not true. That, again, it's the most academically, historically, logical, philosophical, verifiable world view that there is, and just mere creation and mere reasoning about things leads to the necessity for an ultimate being that is good to transcend us, to even know the difference between good and evil, as well as how does this all come about. You know, everything needs a cause. Nothing can come about without being caused by something, and eventually if we go back to all things caused, eventually something has to exist that's eternal and all-powerful and exists outside of time, space, and matter, to be able to cause things that are dependent on causation, namely anything that has matter or is caused, right? Which is our whole universe. Something has to exist outside of the universe to cause the universe. And there's just so much stuff around that leads to us to know that there is a God. And then we look at the nature of what that being must be like, and we see that the Christian worldview from the Bible explains, and it says, hey, all those things that we can come to know about a God that exists and his nature and being all powerful and all good and all these things, the Christian Bible says and explains those things about him best out of any other worldview, as well as then the resurrection for Christ and how that is a fact, undisputable academically, looking at those facts. So that is not what we're talking about. That faith, in terms of us knowing that there is a God, that is not blind. That is very factual, very objective, and so on. This is faith in terms of what next in our lives, now knowing that there's this God that exists. How then do we live our lives? By faith, by not knowing what tomorrow holds for us. That is the type of faith that we are discussing here. So, for a while, Chambers says, we are fully aware of God's concern for us. And I think what he's speaking about here is, as new believers, coming to realize all those things that I just discussed, that there is this God, and that he did come down to earth and he did die for us as wretched, sinful mankind that do not seek him, do not pursue him. That we come to that moment where we're just overwhelmed and moved by that, and we run to God and we say, God, forgive us for our sinfulness and our nature, and we feel it and we know it, and we know that we need a greater hope than just ourselves and fellow mankind. We need something that is ultimate and ultimately good, to save us, to even stand in the presence of something that is ultimately good and ultimately powerful and ultimately holy. We can't do that. And we get to that point and we are moved and we are stirred, and rightly so. But then, as God matures us, that's what he's speaking about here now, right? Those feelings die down, not because they're not true. It's all true, it's all real. But the real work with God and growing in relationship with God then starts becoming relationship and faith dependent, and not always stirred by the emotions and so on that are high when we come to realize that we have need of a God and we need him. So those aren't bad things, but we can't live in those things forever. That's not where the real growth happens. So that's what he's speaking about here as we go on throughout the devotion. So for a while, we are fully aware of God's concern for us, what we just spoke about. But then, when God begins to use us in his work, we begin to take on a pitiful look and talk only of our trials and our difficulties, right? And, it's being stuck at work day in and day out, and, what is the meaning and purpose of life? And I can't deal with this person anymore and that person and so on. And not minimalizing, some of those things are really difficult, but God tells us it's going to be difficult. Disappointment is the gap between expectation and reality. And it's because we expect something else that we've created and machiated in our hearts and our minds. And we think that we should be walking and floating on air and on clouds, when God's says, no, I've told you need to pick up your cross and carry it, and life's going to be difficult, especially if you want to be part of my story and part of my ministry, right? I died on a cross, I suffered. You called to suffer as well. So we begin to take on this pitiful look and talk only of our trials and our difficulties, not realizing that that's the very work God has for us, and that's the very place where God reaches mankind, fellow mankind, isn't it difficult everyday things? Because it's in those difficult everyday things that we realize that there has to be a greater hope, and there has to be something outside of just this everyday stuff that we have to live for. Otherwise life would be meaningless, right? So that's exactly where he wants us, and where he needs us, and where he does his greatest work. And all the while, God is trying to make us do our work as hidden people who are not in the spotlight, right? So again, this everyday grind. None of us would be hidden spiritually if we could help it, right? None of us want to feel spiritually hidden or not see God, not experience God, or so on, right? None of us want that if we can help it. Can we do our work when it seems that God has sealed up heaven? Those seasons where you just go, God, I feel so dry, I feel so empty, I don't see you, I don't sense you, I don't feel you, are you even there, right? That's what he's talking about here. Can we do our work? Can we be faithful to God when it seems that God has sealed up heaven? Can we be faithful to God when we don't experience all those things, when we're in the desert and it's dry and it's barren? Some of us always want to be brightly illuminated saints with golden halos and with continual glow of inspiration, and to have other saints of God dealing with us all the time. And we're in this euphoric state of being and locked in arms with everybody, singing Kumbaya and doing great things and all these things that we sort of aspire to and live to, and we see God moving in miraculous and wonderful ways. And again, not all of that is bad, right? Out on the mission field, I've been on a mission trip where, you just are stirred and you're just absolutely convinced and convicted of how real and how alive God is, because you see him working and moving in people as they experience your hands and your feet and hear his word and how it changes their lives. That's all real. But we can't live there the whole time. We can't be in that the whole time. That's the mountaintop experience. But God, that's a season, that's a place, that's a time that can happen from time to time, but you can't live there forever, right? A self-assured saint is of no value to God. And what he's talking about there is a self-assured saint, not someone who is confident in God, someone who is convicted of their own way of doing things. That way, a self-assured saint is of no value to God. People that want to do things their way and have predetermined and defined how life should work and how their lives should work and how they should be used and how they should be doing life with God and meet God every day, those people are of no value to God. That person is abnormal. He is abnormal, unfit for daily life, and completely unlike God, because God is spirit-filled. And this saint, this person that is looking for those high mountaintop experience the whole time, is not spirit-filled, because ultimately God is found in relationship, not moments, right? Not these mountaintop moments. We are here not as immature angels, and I think what he's saying there is this show up and shine for a time type of a person, right? Where as an angel in the Bible, we read these cool times they show up and they glow and powerful things happen and ministry happens. But we are here not as immature angels, not as immature being those people looking for mountaintop experiences the whole time, the flashy stuff, the angels being great miraculous things happening when they show up. We're not meant to be immature angels in that sense, but as men and women to do the work of this world, right? And we're told that labor is going to be difficult and it's going to be backbreaking and brow sweating. It's going to be difficult. There's trials, there's tribulations that are waiting for us. And we are to do it with an infinitely greater power to withstand the struggle, because we have been born from above, right? We're outside, we do things, we think differently because we have the Spirit in us, and our mind is now set not on this life but on the life to come. So we live this life in a way that would honor and knowing that we live this life for the next life, right? We live with a completely different conviction and mindset. If we continually try to bring back those exceptional moments of inspiration, it is a sign that it is not God we want. We are becoming obsessed with the moments when God did come and speak with us, and we are insisting that He do it again. And what we discussed there a few minutes ago is us feeling alive and so on because of the moments, while the person that is of God isn't feeling alive and seeking the moments. They're seeking a person. They're seeking Jesus Christ. And that's what he's speaking about here. We are becoming obsessed with the moments when God did come and speak with us, and we are insisting that He do it again. But what God wants us to do is to walk by faith. We believe that His word is true. We believe that He is real. So regardless what we feel, we act on conviction to what we know is true, regardless how we feel. And when we feel really low and in the pits, our conviction is what keeps us going and moving forward, not our emotions. That is faith. That is not by sight, right? How many of us have set ourselves aside as if to say, I cannot do anything else until God appears to me? He will never do it. God will never do it. Because now we're starting to define how He should work with us, right? And we will never grow. So He will never do that. We will have to get up on our own. Again, this conviction. We will have to get up on our own without any inspiration. Our inspiration, right? That we're trying to determine how God should work. And without any sudden touch from God. Then comes our surprise, and we find ourselves exclaiming, wow, He was there all the time, and I never knew it. Never live for those exceptional moments. They are surprises, and they are, guys, they're sweet, and we want those things for sure, and we value them. But write that down in a journal and capture that special moment, and thank God for it. That when you are low, you can go back, just like Samuel did to the Ebenezer. I think it's 1 Samuel chapter 5 maybe, right? He raises this Ebenezer. This far the Lord has helped us. Lift up those Ebenezers in your life, Ebenezer being a rock formation as a monument to how God has helped you and come through for you in the past. That when you are in the desert, you are in the dry, barren land, you can come to that thing and you can remember that God is faithful and good because He has been in the past, and you just know it to be true regardless how you feel. God will give us His touches of inspiration only when He sees that we are not in danger of being led away by them. Because if we're seeking these great moments of inspiration and the lights and the flash and the glitter and all those things, we ultimately end up doing it for ourselves and our own joy, our own satisfaction, and not out of obedience to God. We are not faithful to Him. We are faithful to the moments that we are wanting to be created. We must never consider our moments of inspiration as the standard way of life. Our work is our standard, our faithfulness to the everyday drudgery, because we find God in relationship and we find Him in everyday life. We don't seek a moment, we seek a person, and that's when even the greatest, dullest things can become a joy, because you can ultimately move mountains through prayer and be in the presence of the Almighty God, regardless of if you're in the valley or if you're on the mountaintop. Have a great day, guys. Cheers.